FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome, and you are listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm Kerry Lutz. It's the last day of April 2018. So much has happened this month and this year so far. Incredible things. Well, can the system carry on? Will it carry on? Every reserve currency known to man, except for one, has failed eventually. Will the dollar be different? All good questions. Well, with us is our good friend, David Morgan. You find him at themorganreport.com. David, it's been a while, but welcome back.
Kerry, it's good to be back with you. It's been a while. Thank you.
Certainly has. So, but it's like we just pick up where we left off the last time, and we've both been in this space now for so long, and just amazing things going on here. Well, it looked like silver was going to crawl out of its shell. It was over $17 the ounce for, I think, 2 or 3 days. And then what happens? Last week, boom. But it's still in the mid-16 range. According to Charles Nenner, it could test its low of 1550. I wouldn't be surprised to see it, but I just don't think it's going to happen. Gold, maybe it's going to break 1,300 again, and everyone's going to say, oh, this is the long-awaited, decline of gold. But the cycle guys seem to be telling a different story here, David.
Yeah, it's a tough one. We've seen the gold, more than silver, has had this rising wedge that started basically at the bottom at the end of 2015. And that's a very bullish sign, higher lows and higher lows and higher lows. And then if you touch the tops of the uptrend, it's slightly to the downward slope, which means that's a bull wedge. And it's not only a bull wedge that's very bullish, it's over a period of time, which is several years, which means that the breakout should be rather significant once it happens. Having said that, it hasn't happened yet. And silver's chart isn't nearly as pretty as the gold chart. But you cannot maintain any commodity, be it cotton, soybeans, or silver, at the cost of production or below forever. And that's basically where we are. I mean, some of these companies like First Majestic or Hecla, we're writing about Hecla in the May issue of the Morgan Report. By the way, I'll just digress a second. I had Hecla on that list at 50 cents and sold it at $5. And that's a 10-bagger in any way, shape, or form. And I made a speech about that in Calgary years ago, Kerry, and no one even knew that Hecla had made a 10-bagger. Yet in 1979, Hecla Mining was the superstar of the entire NYSE. Nothing in 1979 touched Hecla Mining. It went from $5 to $50. Well, that's a 10-bagger. So couldn't stop the news on Hecla Mining in 1979. Here it was years ago. I forget what year, but years ago. I mean, this was before the 2011 peak. I sold Hecla for a 10-bagger, and no one even knew about it. So what I was speaking about in Calgary at this investment conference was that this was at that time a stealth bull market in the silver world. And it was. And we were making great profits in those days. And, it's been similar going forward because, I've not sat here with a silver only position. I certainly have my core position, but we've been in and out of several high quality mining companies throughout the years making money. And that's why, the Morgan Report is different from just a commentary on silver. But I digressed a far, far way from where we are. What's the silver price going to do? I think it's going to maintain sideways condition and probably will break out near the third quarter, like you said to John Rubino in one of your most recent interviews.
Yeah, it just seems, seasonally, right? That's the time when it breaks out yearly. Gold does in any event. You think it's going to lead gold this time, or it was looking like it was going to lead gold for a very short couple of days there, and then it broke down?
Well, I'm always subject to change my opinion, especially based on the facts. And if you go back into my history, silver almost always led gold in a bull market, but that's not been the case this time. And so I readily admit that. My guess is that gold will probably have to lead. As I said, gold's got a much prettier chart, a much bigger following. It's much more institutionally supported and even mainstream supported. I mean, there's a lot of mainstream types that will have a small sprinkling of gold in their portfolio and not think much about it because they've got a managed money account or whatever. And if the broker's any good, they've got some exposure to gold. But I think, again, gold will probably lead this time.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, that's the way it usually works. And then silver takes over the advance and really puts in some amazing numbers. But we're just not quite there yet. That's what it appears.
I might interject here, Kerry, real quick, that there's a book called The Wisdom of Crowds, and it talks about, if you do a survey, that the crowd wisdom is actually pretty darn good. So in January of this year, I put out a survey on my Twitter account, and I asked how many think that silver will outperform gold this year, 2018. And it came out 75% thought silver would outperform gold this year.
Wow. Yeah. That's a pretty impressive number there. And, the market always acts to frustrate the majority opinion, right?
Exactly.
So this time will probably not be much different. So, it's just we've been in this channel this is going on the almost third year, just the sideways channel where it's just like watching paint dry.
Well, as you know, I coined a phrase, silver will either scare you out or wear you out. And we're certainly in the wear you out phase. I mean, I occasionally look at the comments on the commentaries I make. Most of the time, my guy in the Philippines just gets rid of the ones that use the F word, and almost all the rest we let remain. But
freedom of speech, maybe.
It's obvious that people want something to happen, or they're staying away entirely. And of course, it brings back the adage, never sell a quiet market. I'm still accumulating slightly. I'm looking at really good prospects and building cash. So I said a lot, but I'm not anxious to jump in. I did have a trade on that purported breakout you mentioned right at the top of the show.
Yeah.
And I was stopped out like the next day, and that's life,
That's why you use stops, because otherwise you're going to be catching a falling knife and you're left to your emotions to tell you when to go or stay. And that, from personal experience, I can say does not generally work out for the better. But there are companies that are poised to really exploit this breakout when it really does come, right?
But we've got my favorite speculation is a silver company, and it's got gold in its name, actually. And it's got unbelievable drills. Unbelievable meaning like 50 ounces, not 50 grams. I mean, a lot of these companies are really excited at 2 ounces a ton, 50 grams. This is 50 ounces a ton. They've got lead, zinc, and copper along with it. So it's in the Morgan report, and it's really the only exploration company that I own in the silver space right now. And that's because I'm very selective of what I do and how I do what I, report. And, as you've seen the Morgan report for years,
Sure.
that, most of the big money goes into big companies and most of the little money goes in these speculations. I teach bet a little to win a lot because, contrary to most in the industry, you're going to actually do very poorly if all you ever do is chase the next story, because most of the gold writers in the space talk about this story, that story, and the other story. And yes, there are some good stories out there, but not nearly as many as you would see in the advertising, on the internet, because they just aren't available. There aren't that many good stories. So this company I'm talking about, we recommended March 6th, 2017. So about a year ago. And it's already up 168%. And I think this thing is going to do as well as our best performing silver exploration company, which one of those was Western Copper, which became Western Silver, which was bought by Glamis and then bought by Goldcorp. And if you would have hung with us on that whole transaction, you'd be counting some pretty big dollars on a bet a little, win a lot situation. So anyway, back to you, Kerry.
Yeah, so there's a lot of those bet a little, win a lot situations just hanging out now. These silver stocks, gold stocks, mining stocks, really been slammed. We're starting to see M&A activity, though, aren't we?
Yeah, we did. We're a little early sometimes, and it's just one of my habits. It's just who I am. But we did an article on M&A potentials, and actually, I think 2 or 3 of those came true months and months and months later. But you're right, because a good, smart company with cash, like say First Majestic, that just has a rotation facility with some of the major banks. I mean, they can buy up stuff because they're able to get the cash to do so, and just basically take advantage of these type of markets, which is what you should do as an individual investor. Now, I don't want to sound like I'm contradicting myself, meaning, one, you got to be highly selective. 2, you got to buy at the right time, which is now. But I also am trying to stress, don't be in a big rush. This thing's gone sideways for a long time, and that may continue to go sideways for a long time. So don't think you're picking an exact bottom. Buy a position like a professional. Be happy with your purchase price, and be willing to have some patience.
Yep. You really have to be. But the patience, 7 years already here, David. 7 years since metals peaked. And, people are really starting to lose hope.
They are. And again, I just really don't know what to say other than to be somewhat defensive. Look, I specialized in the resource sector. We looked at moly, we looked at base metals, energy metals. We wrote about cobalt before people could spell it. And I've always maintained 10 to 20%. So people that claim I this and I that, well, they've never paid me a dime. And they've never looked at what kind of equity analysis we do, making people money all through this down and sideways trend. And they are quick to criticize a full portfolio based on, say, the precious metals, which is nothing that I teach. I teach, like I said, 10 to 20%. So what do you do with the other 80%? Well, real estate is one. I mean, a business. I mean, there's lots of things to do. I don't want to get into that field because I am very restrictive to the resource sector, which is huge. And it's what I have time for. But to sit there and beat me up for like, this is what you did, it's like only if you didn't follow what I said. But no one seems to be man enough to, own that. They're very, very critical. And, maybe, again, I sound defensive, but I don't wish to be. I want any new listener to realize that I think everyone needs exposure to the resource sector, but in the right quantity. I mean, if you eat too much good food, you're still going to eat too many calories, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, unless you're eating whatever. Unless you go vegan, you can't eat too many vegetables. That's what I'm told, right?
Okay, I'll go with that.
I don't know the answer to it, but I do know that what we're seeing here, it can't continue on. I've seen it in so many other commodities. Oil stuck in the dumps for years, breaks out. Sugar trading at 2 cents a pound. They said they were going to have to, sugar producers would have to start paying the public to take their to take the sugar off their hands, all these things. And then what happens one day? It's like somebody has always said, every dog has its day. And not that I consider metals to be dogs, but compared to what's going on here.
Well, Kerry, if I could interject, something we talked about off air, and I did this recently with another interview, but I know not everyone listens to, me across the board, and that's fine. But I know you have listeners that this other channel doesn't.
Sure.
And when the day comes that this run to gold happens, it's because people are very motivated to move to gold because confidence has broken down the system. Well, how could confidence break down the system? Well, all fiat currencies, as you started the show, fail. And we are failing at the U.S. dollar, which means at some point maybe the bond market goes ballistic and the bond traders really start to see interest rates go up, meaning bond prices go down and people get scared and start moving to gold. Or the equity market starts a waterfall decline and all of a sudden people want out of the stock market and want to move to gold because gold's the most negatively correlated asset to the stock market. Or both the bond market and the stock market. Or perhaps there's a bomb that goes off somewhere. Or there's an electrical grid failure. Or there's on and on. Make up a scenario, but confidence is lost in the dollar and moves into gold. Once that psychology takes hold in a big mass scale, meaning globally, then it's almost impossible to get out of gold. What I mean by that is that the people that own it will hold it even more dearly. The new people that are coming in to buy it, it's a small market, will bid the price higher and higher and higher. And no one really wants to sell because they're scared. It's a fear move. And because it's a fear move, no one really wants to sell. Now, there will be sellers because it will get such a high paper price, it'll be smart to maybe, sell off some gold and pay off a loan like a student loan or a car loan or a house loan or pay down debt, or maybe exchange it for something that's really undervalued. But by and large, what happens is this is a go market. And this is what we actually witnessed in the 2011 climb in the silver market. Everyone that owned it was holding it dearly, and all new buyers were bidding higher and higher. It took 5 changes in the margin requirement by the exchange on the silver price to finally quell the market. And that's what took place. So that was like a precursor, I think, to what we'll see in the future. So I want people to get the idea that these things are extremely rare. They don't happen every generation. They happen every 4 or 5 generations. But when they happen, because there is a failure of the entire system, in other words, a mistrust of the currency on a nation level, and this time it'll be a global level, there's no run to gold like we've ever experienced like this one's going to be. And I still think strongly it will happen. Now, if I'm wrong, you bet 20% or 10% of what you own on that scenario. Okay? So you got 80% to bet on other things that do great in a great economy. But you're also protected because once that run to gold happens, that I still think will, that 20% won't only become 200%, it might come 2,000%. And that's what a hedge is supposed to perform like.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Hey, we still see people looking for alternatives. How else do you explain the cryptocurrency boom and later bust, but that they're looking for alternatives to the U.S. dollar?
Absolutely. Well said. I mean, that's exactly right. People are looking for alternatives. I'm all in favor of alternative currencies. I am not a huge Bitcoin fan, as most that have listened to me or read my work know, but I am very amenable to an idea that works and I'm not saying Bitcoin doesn't work, that an idea that there's alternatives. And I'm, free market. The marketplace will determine. And I said that in my article. Some see it as very disparaging against Bitcoin. It really isn't. It's kind of an open look into my head kind of an article that says, who am I to judge what Bitcoin is, good or bad? Let the market decide. I did say in that article, however, that if it gets to be very well liked by the public at large, watch out. Governments hate competition. They may come in and start to nix this situation. And, of course, those were rather good visionary type words based upon an article that's over 4 years old, because once Bitcoin really started to motor ahead, guess who got involved? Governments worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. And, we've also got higher interest rates happening here. It's amazing. Everybody, the same things they accused the powers that be of, messing around with precious metals. These same people are now saying it about cryptocurrencies, conspiracy theories, etc. So it's picking out the fact from the theory is really difficult.
Yeah.
So, but you got to figure we got Sprott, who's setting up a crypto. I mean, right now they're just selling gold that's evidenced by the blockchain. There's that whole thing with them and Gold Corp and others. So seeing these asset-backed cryptos, I think, is really going to change the market. They're so-called security tokens. I think that when there really is something, it's like gold money. they were kind of ahead of the curve. But when there really is something backing it that's provable and transparent, audited regularly, and kept in a very secure location, all of a sudden the thing does start to take on more value-oriented aspects and much less speculative aspects, like you saw Bitcoin and other cryptos that are backed up by absolutely nothing.
Well, this is opinion only, and I will readily state for everyone that I do consider myself to be anything close to an expert on cryptocurrencies. But from my perspective, I really think that what you said is true, that the next leg up and the kind of the shaking out of, let's say, these lesser quality tokens or coins will be based on the market determining that asset-based cryptos are probably going to gain more and more momentum. So I'm involved with this agx.lode.one. And so it's a symbol for silver, ag.lode.one. It's the first silver cryptographic money, according to the website. I know there's others out there. I'm just stating what the website says. But I think this is going to be one of many that people will actually enjoy using because it gives them a way to use real money in electronic form that most of the younger generation, the millennials, really understand. And what is it? It's real money backed, but it's electronic digital money backed by something of value. And I have a issue in this. I know I'm going to get corrected in the comments section, but as far as I'm concerned, the distributed ledger isn't as all anonymous as a lot of people are led to believe. If you have a piece of silver in your pocket, like, I don't know, let's just make up a scenario, Kerry, but you've got 3 ounces of silver, which is what, 36, 40, 50 bucks roughly. And I've got, I don't know, a book that you want. I've got a double issue of the Silver Bulls. It's a classic book. And you say, hey, I'll give you 3 ounces of silver, and I'll give you the book. I'm happy. You're happy. that's an anonymous transaction. There's nobody that knows that took place except you and I. But in these crypto ledgers, I'm not so sure that they're, as secret as some people say. Now, I know there's ways to do, transfers with, wallets and all this stuff and go to, I know that it's possible. But in the gold and silver world, when you're using actual coins, it's pretty anonymous. It's pretty much what some of these cryptos claim to do, and it's been around for thousands of years.
Yeah, it's been around for a long time, at least as long as gold, probably even longer. They used to make mirrors from silver, but now that the Chinese make mirrors, they last. These mirrors that had silver on the back, I can't remember the name of the term they used for it. They last forever, David. Now you get a mirror from China, and the thing is going bad. After 2 or 3 years, you see the corners and the bottom where it gets a little moisture, and it starts blackening, and directly a result of not using silver for mirrors. But I guess it's not the best use for silver these days, is it? Like X-rays.
Well, they've used aluminum as a substitute for years, and this is also true with the CD world. If you go back to the early days of the CD-ROM, the better quality ones were using silver. But then aluminum reflects light pretty well. Not as well as silver by a long shot, but very well. And so they started making them out of aluminum. So this is pervasive. It's one of those quality quantity things. Of course, it's normal in economics to squeeze your margins and make the best product you can for the lowest cost and increase your profit. I have no problem with that. But when the quality goes down the toilet, now you've got a problem because you're going to be out of business. But, I think to be a little contrite, I think it's a little bit like when I was a kid. Kerry, I know we're roughly the same age. I got a few years on you, but,
not many.
Made in Japan was a joke. When I was a 10-year-old kid, made in Japan meant it was cheap. It wasn't going to last long. And,
it was crap.
You get what you pay for. It's crap. And, of course, that changed rapidly, where the best of the best was Japan. You're looking at Sony and Samsung and Honda and Toyota and on it goes. Like, if you get something from Japan, you're getting a high quality product. Sort of the same scenario for China right now, in my estimation. You've got a lot of stuff coming from China that's just, it's going to last a short time. You're buying it cheap and you know that you're going to have to replace it. But I think over time, it's going to be the same situation as Japan. It's like, sooner or later, it's like, man, this is really, I'm paying up a little bit more, but boy, this is really a competitive value. And boy, once that happens, look at where China's place is going to be. Yeah, I know they've got debt problems and everything else. I don't want to go down that road on this interview, but
sure,
look out. They're motivated.
Oh, agreed.
They have a motivation that most in the quote unquote free market or free world really don't have anymore.
Oh yeah. Totally. So it's just funny. I was thinking of this, my brother, when he was younger, this is 50 something years ago. He got a Motorola transistor radio. And that was like the creme de la creme. They went for like $50 50 years ago. So it'd be like $500 now. And then somebody gave him a Japanese radio and it worked somewhat, but it was basically a piece of garbage. And, nowadays, forget it. Well, not that anybody makes transistor radios. I'm dating myself because there's an app for it, right? There's an app for everything. And the point is, though, that the qualitative aspects of production, I just find it a little frustrating when the damn mirror's going bad after like 3 years. There's no excuse for that. But anyways, but more uses for silver, right? Nothing's changed there. They keep coming up with them every day, right?
Yeah, almost every day. Now, it's pretty incredible. In fact, I'm thinking, as I promised you in the past, Kerry, of doing a more small podcast, 5-10 minute range about uses of silver. And I could probably make, a few hundred podcasts just on, different uses of silver that people are really not even acquainted with, that is absolutely essential to their well-being and this way of life, but it's just taken for granted. But it's a project yet to happen.
Yeah, there's so much. I mean, even on clothing, everything, we talked about it numerous times. There's so many things that it just, there's nothing like it. There's really nothing like it, and it's being depleted at a rapid rate. Production has been close to all-time highs, but it seems to be pulling back a bit now, doesn't it?
Well, 3 years, we had basically a peak in the silver market's ability to produce on an annual basis. I still think, I know that there's actually some pretty big deposits out there, like the one I alluded to earlier in the show. But, those aren't up and running yet. So have we hit peak silver? I don't think so. Have we hit peak gold? I'm certain we have. If and only if there's no new technology out there that doesn't, is a big game changer, which I don't see at this point in time. But I'm smart enough to know that there could, because my predecessor, Jerome Smith, made a big boo-boo. And that was not accounting for a technological change that would drastically increase the production of gold. And, of course, silver came along for the ride. So I don't want to make the same mistake that he made. But from where I see it presently, we're pretty much peak gold and peaking silver. And, in fact, the USGS, United States Geological Survey, states in print, and you can look this up, don't trust me, that silver will be the first metal on the periodic table to get in short supply. And that's according to them, not me.
No question. You're absolutely right. I've read it numerous times all over the place. That is just a fact of life. But we're not going to run out of silver, though, anytime soon, are we?
No way. I mean, price is the arbiter of any good or service. And, we're talking about investment grade silver, and there's very little of that, maybe 2 billion ounces. But, silver gets sky high again. There's still mirrors, there's still silverware, there's still silver jewelry, there's still, a lot of silver out there in one shape or form that would be converted to, let's say, investment grade silver. That could come to the marketplace. I don't want to ignore that. I do want to add on to that, though, Kerry, for just a minute. I know this interview's gone fairly long, but Charles Rivers Associates did a study after the Great Meltdown. That's what silver bugs call it. And that was during the 1980 peak. And the smelters were backed up for months, like 6 to 9 months. They had so much silver stockpiled and candelabras and chains and, silverware and everything else.
Yeah.
And they looked at it, and Charles Rivers and Associates looked at it and said, well, what would happen the next time that, silver price goes astronomically high? how much silver would come to the market. The results of that study were very interesting. Basically, what they said is it would take extremely high prices, and there's not that much left, was the bottom line. Now, what does that mean? Those are vague terms, David, and the answer is by the study, if you can find it. But I forget the numbers, I give them to you, but the essence of what I said is the Great Meltdown was like the Great Meltdown. There isn't another bunch of silver sitting there in silverware and drawers or whatever. I'm not saying there isn't any. I'm just saying that the Great Meltdown pretty much took place. Now, that book was written years ago, and things changed. So I want to put this in a perspective of a proper framing, which means that, more and more silverware has been bought in the last, 15 years. So that adds to the potential, turning it back into silver ingots. But anyway, the point is that there's far less silver than gold available in investment form, and people just can't seem to grasp that concept.
Yeah, they really can't. And, well, the supply dynamics don't really matter now, but a little moderate increase in demand coming from the investment sector could make all the difference. And then if large industrial users start to get nervous about their supply and really start to get involved in the market to secure future supply, that's when things get interesting. I don't know when it's going to happen. You don't. But that will be an inevitability of it, because it just makes sense for people to for companies to wind up accumulating silver just as an insurance policy, much the same way that many of you out there accumulate silver. Anyway, David, we got to get running again. Just tell us, Morgan Report, how do we subscribe?
Yeah, just go to themorganreport.com. I'll get yourself on a free email list. If you really want to get involved, go to my other website, richesinresources.com. That's all one word, richesinresources.com. You can get a PDF file, 11 pages long. We just updated recently. Thank you, Kerry.
Hey, my pleasure. Hey, and as always, be a part of the show. Get involved. Email us, kl@kerrylutz.com. Twitter feed is @KerryLutz. And the Facebook page for now, Financial Survival Network. David, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on and sharing your time.
My pleasure. Thank you, Kerry.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.